Hello and welcome to a new series of Dinis Guarda, Cities ABC Open Business Council podcast and YouTube channel series. We are welcome today Charlie Hu, and I'm very excited to make an acquaintance and as well introducing to our audience one of the leading personalities in fintech and blockchain in China, but as well around the world, but as well a personality that has been bridging a huge capacity in terms of different areas, verticals, and technology knowledge and academic knowledge as well. So Charlie Hu is an expert on Web 3.0, decentralized technology, platforms and applications. And this has actually been going from the theory to the practice because he has an academic background, but as well a very strong research and capacity of building technology and ecosystems. He's the founder and managing partner of Candaq Fintech Group, which is a high-profile cutting-edge company based out of China, but as well with global footprint, with offices in Hangzhou, Berlin, and Silicon Valley. With Candaq, Charlie has been focused on the incubation and investment in fintech and blockchain-based startups, and offers professional tokenized, initially offering advisory services, but as well an ecosystem around building technology and the right audiences for this technology. Charlie Hu has led investment and business development in more than 15 projects and cross-border international technology partnerships. He is an expert in community building, technology, and project ecosystems, and has been leading and right now more involved in the Chinese ecosystem for Polkadot, and right now more on Tezos ecosystem as well, which is two of the biggest leading blockchain infrastructure and community technologies in the planet, and as well two massive tokens that have been growing to valuations over billions of dollars each of them. Charlie Hu is an expert in community building, technology-driven innovation, and as well a member of the World Economic Forum, Global Shaper Beijing Hub, and the organizer of TEDx Hangzhou, and as well the ThingsCon Shanghai, and alumni of Aspire Academy Harvard Leadership Program. So fantastic and impressive background. Charlie, welcome to our series, first of all.
Thank you very much, Dinis. Thank you for the welcome intro. Appreciate to have me here. Thank you.
So Charlie, I want to start with, so you have a fantastic background that touches academic, it touches business and technology, it touches investment, and it touches technology. So it's a lot of different things that are the most important things for our world, but most of people stick with one thing. So you've been bridging all of this, and as well, you are based out of China as we speak, but you've been actually as well talking and working with Europe, with the US, and a bit all over the world. So can you tell us a bit about your background from the education and what made you be who you are right now?
Sure, thank you very much. So from my education, I mostly have business education. I had my bachelor degree, more like a 2+2 program. I spent 2 years studying in Beijing Foreign Studies University, International Business, and I had a chance to join the Disney program. The chance I was studying in Florida and actually part-time working in Disney World in Orlando. That was actually a kind of very immersed experience I had with America. Yeah. So and I was lucky enough to actually get some multiple offers from American schools, but also some Dutch schools. So I eventually ended up with the Dutch business university called the Nijrode Business School with the full scholarship involved. So I think the experience I had with my European education helped me open my perspective even further, right? So I studied my financial management more like in this behavioral finance sector in my master's degree. That was a period I got to know Bitcoins actually in 2012 and 2013. So more from the academic to more like the industrial background. I got to know Bitcoin because of the community, because of the early Amsterdam Bitcoin community. When a lot of people were very skeptical, what is the true value of Bitcoin, right? But a lot of people were actually pretty hardcore trying to find a way to do Bitcoin mining and so on. But my background as a career, before 2015, I wouldn't say I was full-time joining as Bitcoin or blockchain as industry, right? I was starting my own startup from one of the top leading Dutch accelerator called Rockstar. And so I was working there and actually leading my own startup and doing like IoT design and things. So get a chance to meet a lot of really super talented entrepreneurs, startup founders, and investors, especially the early stage investors in Amsterdam. And because Amsterdam is such a well-connected and central European hub city hub, right? I get to know people from all over the world, and a lot of them who I met in the early days back in 2013 and 14, and now has become a very successful founders or investors now. So um, about my more about my background is I built and I kind of initiated a lot of the communities. From that time, I was involved in the ThingsCon community, one of the very interesting Berlin initiated, but also very globally connected IoT innovation and community. They have a very good vision called human-centric responsible IoT. And that was very inspiring. And actually they were the groups actually, send up this proposal about GDPR in the very early stage. So the European GDPR, General Privacy Protection Regulation, was kind of co-built by this community. So I was kind of contributing from my side of the knowledge and actually getting involved on building the ThingsCon in Shanghai or maybe like China community when I get back to China. So, but along the way, I joined World Economic Forum Global Shaper community because it's a very, it has like 400 hubs all over the world. So Beijing was, because my bachelor degree, I was in Beijing, I got a chance to actually join in 2017. So my career mostly is involved in financial markets, in fintech, but more specifically in the blockchain technology. So the reason how we are doing this quite successfully is we combine the knowledge of research, especially in the cryptographic and blockchain technology as the research papers, into the practice of product design, commercialization, and also with lean startup kind of methodology, right? So we in Candaq, we didn't have the name before until 2019, right? Before that, we called ourselves HiveChain. It was basically 5 of us as a kind of crypto OG in a way. My partner Code Moon basically played this academic role. He has a computer science degree in PhD from Tsinghua University, and then was assistant professor in Seattle University. So from that, we did a lot of research about cryptographic stuff. We were the first group, like a Chinese team in the world, built a combined consensus algorithm blockchain called a ZCC, proof of stake and proof of work consensus. We had a lot of discussion with the creator of a proof of stake consensus, Sonny King, in 2012. That project didn't work so well, but it was very, very inspiring kind of learning experience for us to get involved in the crypto space very deeply, talking with all kinds of core dev in Bitcoin, and also, some other Hyperledger, early days of Hyperledger, and some other consulting chain groups. So from that, we end up with a very interesting investment thesis. And also the way to look at the blockchain is a research-driven, paper-driven investment together with proof concept, product design methodology. How to understand that is a lot of blockchain innovation come from research, come from a lot of cryptographic research papers, but how to make it commercialized, there's a gap, right? Which is engineering, to make sure you validate your proof concept, validate your product assumption, but also quickly make kind of software layer prototype to test the assumption and so on. So we have like a six or seven stage of product innovation and validation methodology that helps a lot by validating the project which we like to invest, but also by providing our advisory service for incubation, right? So we have done a lot of investment deals along the years. Many of the layer one infrastructure public blockchain, we were kind of the early rounds investor, and not just investment, but actually helping them along the way to validate your assumption, provide this kind of token economic design, but also, more importantly, is on the technology infrastructure and architect design. So that's our strong side. on my side, I'm always focused on community. I have very different perspective about community building, and also engaged with the open source movement. So we did a lot of hackathon organization events in the past, and by doing so, we realized more and more that to build a very good blockchain or fintech infrastructure, you need to have a lot of developer on board. That is through the way which is not top-down approach, but more like a decentralized, bottom-up community building way. So by doing that in the last couple of almost 10 years now, I really feel that a lot of social innovation or kind of digital innovation will be done in a co-creation way and within the context of community, right? So that's actually the reason blockchain industry is growing so fast and so globally connected, because if we don't have the open source community, people can share information so easily and can co-create this so easily, there actually won't be such a well and fast developing and fast growing industry. Like I wouldn't say if there's no community, there's no Bitcoin, but definitely will be much slower. Yeah. So I hope this can give you guys a little bit context about what I did in the past and what I've been involved in the last couple of years.
No, it's very impressive, and I like this kind of both different bridges between different things, different countries, different areas. So I want to precisely to talk that. So you are based in China, and
yeah.
Of course China is becoming right now the biggest global power, both financial wise, both technology wise. But in terms of society, a lot of the things we're talking, and that in a lot of countries are still science fiction, are already real. You guys have already a digital transformation strategy that is right now mostly mainstream in all China. You have right now all money digital. Even the central bank of China has been already creating the digital currency. So
right.
from your experience working around the world, and as well working with the likes and collaborating with the likes of Google's and a lot of other organizations, Harvard and so forth, what have you been seeing these bridges between culture from you as a Chinese, but as well as a citizen of the world, and there's different ways that we can find it. Because I think one of the things for me that is key is demystifying, because technology is not national. It's something that it's about code. It's something that is created by humans all over the world, but like you said, it needs global communities to thrive and to foster. So a bit of your background on that level, but as well how you cope with all these differences, and as well a bit of overview about what you've been seeing in China, the innovation and the major things that you've been seeing from a community and from a technology and finance perspective.
Thank you for the question. First of all, this question I think I will answer in multiple perspectives, right? In multiple dimensions. So in terms of China, by all means, it's a very unique country, right? We have our own, system in terms of all kind of internet platforms, right? We have our own China encryption and a lot of different ways of code standards. The way we build a lot of infrastructure in internet, IoT, and also in blockchain is quite unique in kind of the Chinese way, which is kind of different. I would say very different from the Western, like the European, standard. So technically speaking, it's quite unique. So the compatibility is relatively an issue, but I think China is becoming more and more involved in the global open source community. I know the founder of a CSDN, one of the largest developer community in China, founders very well. Last year, they showed in their open source, annual summit, the number of people, like Chinese developers that participated in the global open source community protocol repository has been exponentially grown in the last 10 years. So we see a lot of Chinese innovation, actually, a lot of Chinese innovative people or developers are getting more and more involved and hands-on, contributing in the global innovation approach. Having said that, by all means, China's innovation is still very different. It's pretty market-driven, right? From the Web 2.0 internet field, I think majority of the innovation is come from business model design rather than a kind of fundamental technology design. We had a lot of good advanced product design, especially in the fintech world. You mentioned about mobile payment, all that. I think China is actually leading the way because we have so much big traffic and so much consumer users, right, in different scenarios. So, and having said that, also a lot of hardware innovation is actually leading by China because we have a very diverse and sophisticated supply chain, about manufacturing, about hardware design, all that. Shenzhen is one of the most well-known kind of hardware hub in the world, right? A lot of kind of all those IoT sensors, kind of electronic components actually made in Shenzhen, or places nearby there. A lot of Western startups, hardware ones, needs to source that from Shenzhen. So that's actually one of the major reason China is actually doing a lot of interesting stuff that actually leading the innovation in the global scale in the hardware space, right? So talking about the academic side, China has been learning a lot from the American or Western universities, how to combine the business practice and product innovation into the research projects, right? I think from 2010 till now, we had a lot more practical research reports, more like involvement in the global global scale innovation projects as well. From what I know, at least in Fudan University and Zhejiang University, there's a lot of engineering dev house teams participating in the global coding, competition and product design competition in the world. So that's actually getting more and more involved in the global landscape, not just isolated as just China itself, right? So that having said the economic side, I think on the trading side or international trade or commercial side, it has been a lot of big changes, right? Because of COVID, because of the foreign currency rate change and so on, many kind of fiscal reasons. China's position in international trade changed a lot, and from the kind of the low cost, low labor cost, kind of hard, labor intense type of manufacturing, supplier side country, more moving to this kind of innovative, service driven, combined economic, right? So we have supplying a lot of a service, not just this is a low, labor intense product anymore, right? I think a lot of the low cost manufacturing factories are migrating and has been relocated from China to some Southeastern countries, right? Such as Vietnam, Thailand, Bangladesh, like that, right? A lot of companies are migrating. So that's actually a major economic factor we need to keep in mind. My family business, I didn't actually mention. My dad has multiple factories focused on automotive parts. Several of his business has to move, especially the production line has to move to Thailand and Vietnam, in the last couple of years because of the increasing labor cost in China, but also the stricter regulation in terms of environmental protection, carbon, things, and we need to pay additional costs and even taxes if you have a pretty high polluted manufacturing, production line in China. So I think it has changed quite a lot in a very massive level in China in the last, I would say in the last 10 years. I hope that answers your question somehow, because it's a very widely open question. And
no, it's perfect, and I love that. So that brings me to the next stage, and I think I like the way you answered, because you went on a 360. Yeah, my questions sometimes are very big, so I appreciate that. But that is as well the purpose of this podcast, is think bigger and out of the box. So one of the things that you've been creating a lot of companies, and I saw from like some of the things you mentioned, but others that are part of your LinkedIn profile and part of what you've been doing. One of them, of course, and the most important, is Candaq Fintech Group. So can you tell us about Candaq, what it is, and as well what you've been doing, and as well a bit of background with other companies that have been creating our technology services?
Sure. So it depends on who are we talking about, right? If we're talking in the business sector, Candaq is more like a financial service company, more also in like an investment fund, right? So we have like a self-owned fund plus multiple syndicated fund, and with a lot of interesting LP and kind of supporting us. So we have been investing more than 60 projects from 2015 till now. Some major case we invest, I think one of them is definitely Polkadot. We were early enough, we were kind of lucky and early to join their first round in 2017. And by doing so, we realized there's a lot of opportunity to build an ecosystem on top of that, because Polkadot, I think after Ethereum, was one of the first layer one infrastructure blockchain project that has the potential to build a very diverse ecosystem. We like Gavin Wood. We know him from early days when he was still in Ethereum, and we have strong faith on him. So that was the reason we were very bullish on this new ecosystem, right? So we start to build the China side of Polkadot ecosystem since at the end of 2018. We pretty much started going all in 2019. By doing so, we get to know a lot of interesting projects, a lot of parachain project founders, and we incubated the multiple projects such as Fala Network, MXC, and in recent years, since last year, we incubated them much further more, such as Cross Network and the Linton Tree. So many of those kind of layer one or layer two project blockchain protocol projects, we help them from the very early days, kind of product design, architect building, all the way to community building, and then even down the road for their commercialization. So we have a very hands-on approach in terms of our investment, and we help them along the way, kind of like a co-founder level, because we kind of all have not just investment background, but also entrepreneur backgrounds. So that's essentially the unique part about Candaq. I think we are also a very important bridge between a lot of Western, foreign fintech companies, blockchain companies who wants to enter China. So we have multiple service arm underneath Candaq Group. One is our medium arm, which is Liandu. We started that since 2019 and have helped more than 30 international companies enter China to do content adoption, media exposure, and all kind of PR related activities, which has been quite effective for a lot of projects to avoid some kind of miscommunication, cultural difference issues in the early days. The second arm we had is our consulting. We have Tezos as our consulting arm that provide more on the commercial side of to mitigate some kind of risk and help them avoid some kind of mistake a lot of international projects will make when they enter China in the building partnership and so on, right? So we have done that with I think more than 10 projects now in this kind of consulting based collaboration. So that's the two arms we mostly have. By doing the second arm, like consulting, we actually, because we bring a lot of interesting technology company into China, right? We're building a very good close connections with universities and the government, especially in Hangzhou government. So we're working closely with their technology bureau and also commercial bureau to attract foreign technology companies to land in China, to create their Chinese subsidiary company entity, and even help them apply for their Shanghai, Hangzhou kind of city grants, which is equity free and kind of support this, provide kind of supportive value for them to facilitate and actually accelerate their business in China. That is very important and helpful for a lot of foreign business to really want to roll out in China. So I've been doing that as a kind of council member or like a consultant along the year, especially since 2019.
Fantastic. So it's a lot of stuff, and it's really, you're building a lot of things that are really touching a lot of different areas in the global footprint between technology and business development, which is very important. So that brings me to you mentioned Tezos, you mentioned Polkadot, and you mentioned that you've been working to build the ecosystem. So can you tell us about, let's start with Tezos first. So how you've been working with Tezos from the beginning. I know that you're going to be more involved with them going forward. But I know that, first of all, as well, a bit of an overview of your relationship with Tezos, but about Tezos as well, for people that have less familiarity with the Tezos and the ecosystem.
Yeah, so I just start to getting more and more involved with Tezos, especially their TZ APAC, Asia Pacific region. They have a subsidiary company underneath the Tezos Global Foundation. I'm start to work with them as an advisor, the China side advisor, strategic partner since this month. Tezos, in a nutshell, is one of the third generation decentralized smart contract infrastructure that enables a lot of blockchain applications to build the smart contract applications, and tokenization on assets, many other applications on top of them. And Tezos, in a way, is very secure. They're building on their own unique formal verifiable language called OCaml. They have a lot of research paper already written and published in a lot of top level cryptology forum, academic forum, and has been done a lot of solid validation and tests in top universities in Europe, especially in France, because the founder is based in France, and also in other countries like in West Coast, Silicon Valley, like UC Berkeley, and they have a lot of long-term relationship with those universities. In terms of use cases, they are very strong on STO, the security token offering, but also in smart contract and development for a lot of the use cases that has the need for immutability, traceability, transparency, that kind of features they want to involve in technology. The ecosystem has grown since 2017 till now. They have like more than 300 projects involved globally. And due to some reason, there was not so much involved in China. So that was actually one of the reasons they asked me to help them on board. And there's a lot of synergy, I think they realized to working with Chinese projects. And I think it's exciting this year with the movement of CBDC, all kinds of more proven, use cases on security token offering or digital asset on chain. The strong side of Tezos can be realized and actually well developed in the China ecosystem as well. So that's something I'm very looking forward to contribute, and getting quite excited about that as well.
Fantastic. And just in terms of some case studies, so you mentioned security tokens and tokenization. Is there any case study in particular that you want to talk? I know that China is much more advanced than Europe in terms of blockchain roadmap. And I know that Tezos is probably, well, one of the top 10 most important blockchain infrastructure and ecosystems worldwide, but as well one of the tokens. Just to understand on that level, for instance, you mentioned on the ecosystem in China, what you've been doing, any case studies, for instance, on tokenization, on security tokens, any particular thing that you want to highlight from the Tezos ecosystem that you've been working?
That's a good question. First of all, I think as a matter of fact, the Tezos that hasn't really built that much footprint in China yet. Compared to Polkadot, they're relatively very strong in Europe, and has pretty interesting cases. They have been working in the Southeast Asia or APAC region. So what I can share from my still not so deep connection in understanding yet, because I'm just kind of start to help Tezos in recent days, is I think they have a lot of research labs building the digital asset on chain in Singapore and in Korea. One of the leading telecom companies in Korea is exploring Tezos as one of the infrastructure protocol to build their new digital asset for the telecom digital transformation system. In a way, they are able to get traceability and immutability within their system in the new version. Security token offering is not just technology innovation, but also a legal side innovation. So I will even put that into category of legal tech. The asset you want to create, such as real estate or some others, will package into ownership, even either fractional ownership or the entire ownership of the asset, a property, into the token. And because the token is created and minted, and through the smart contract, we will fractionalize it and it can get distributed, but it will be on top of the blockchain, right? So when the people who purchase and actually wants to have certain percentage of the ownership of the asset, they will be able to trace it, and I can then make sure they don't have the double spend problem and things like that, right? Tezos has been building a lot of a kind of test bed and explorative research in the supply chain finance field. I think that they have a lot of things done. I cannot really give the names, sorry yet, because something are still ongoing on the NDA. They have a lot of trade finance kind of collaboration to facilitate some trade finance platform with their technology, especially in the region of Singapore. Singapore is one of the central hub in Southeast Asia, and also one of the headquarters for the World Trade Finance Council. And through that technology, a lot of SMEs are able to show and proven, provide proof to the banks that their account receivable and their kind of, other contractual asset is solid. They have the legitimacy and actually, they can earn trust, on top of this digital platform, right? Without that, it was most likely the state-owned company or some other, conglomerate big corporation are able to get this kind of account payable, account receivable loans from the commercial banks, because banks are, sorry about that. The banks only trust those kind of trustworthy labeled big corporates, right? But in the reality, in the supply chain, who actually need the most of the supply chain finance is the SMEs. This cannot be done without blockchain, without the traceability of the cargo, without the tracking on the legitimacy and the real instance on the financial receivable and so on, right? So Tezos has been doing a lot of test bed in the region of South Asia in the trade finance solution. And sorry, I cannot really give a specific name.
No, it's already fantastic.
Yeah, because this is
still no, there's a lot of things you're doing, but this is actually areas that are massive, and I think there's a lot of business, and that's why as well why Tezos is so powerful as a blockchain ecosystem and as well as a token. So then let's go to Polkadot. So I think you are as well one of the first ones building the Polkadot in China and being part of that, which is right now, I think, the top 5 token in the world, but as well a blockchain interoperability system. So can you tell us about Polkadot? Because I think people don't know much about it, but I know that it's a massive powerhouse as well.
Sure. So Polkadot, the interesting part about Polkadot is the founder was also the former CTO of Ethereum, right? Gavin, as a C++ developer, has been successfully built and created. He basically created this Ethereum virtual machine, right? EVM. That's part of the core module to enable smart contract issuance, right? In the Ethereum. He realized blockchain in a way is like Bitcoin, Ethereum has building this kind of information silos, which they don't really communicate to each other. It's kind of against the principle of open, flexible Web3. So compared to Web2, Web3 should be more open, more interoperable. You can send messages and actually share data through different architects, it's a kind of a heterogeneous architect of blockchains. So the vision of Polkadot is to build a cross-chain protocol, eventually become the internet of the blockchain, right? Between different blockchains. So that's the kind of the genesis vision why Polkadot started. But now I think after 3 years, fast forward 3 years after they created Polkadot, now it's much more than just cross-chain protocol. It's kind of the interesting infrastructure to enable all kinds of Web3 type of application on top of that. They have a very interesting technology framework called a substrate, which consists of a lot of interesting modules and can define a lot of attributes of different type of blockchain characteristic to let you use as a toolkit to build your specific domain, specific blockchain. So without that, people need around 8 to 10 months to build a fully functional public chain, to maintain the nodes, to issue your block, and have your own consensus algorithm and so on. So with Substrate, they decrease the cost and the time to build a blockchain in quite a next level of magnitude of scale. Like you can achieve to build a kind of standardized blockchain within 20 minutes. So Gavin in 2018, he showed as a live demo in the Web3 Summit how doing that with a completely brand new MacBook laptop to install Substrate and build that, and showed how to issue a block and build that blockchain. He did that within 15 minutes even. So, so that was a kind of phenomenal, right? Interesting about blockchain, Polkadot as a use case scenario is there's a lot of, specific, domain-specific type of different logic blockchain is getting to be built on top of Polkadot relay chain as a parachain. So it's like if you want to build a identity management specific blockchain, right? Your smart contract, your features that can have your unique features for identity management, so some kind of this kind of DID stuff. This blockchain is very specific, right? But if you want to connect your message, your features into some kind of like DeFi or financial fintech blockchain, specific blockchain, you can attach to the relay chain in Polkadot, and with that, you can able to send your messages from your own chain to via their validator through the relay chain to the other parachain. So that gives the freedom to transfer different type of messages among different blockchains. That is kind of, in a way, you're not able to do that in Ethereum. Right? Ethereum is a very standalone, built on top of it, based on Solidity. They have their EVM, Turing complete type of blockchain, right? They don't really have a way to bridge to other blockchains. So they have the philosophy, there's only one chain which is needed in the world, that is Ethereum. So, but actually that's not the case in the world. The world needs a lot of different type of blockchain to facilitate different type of use cases and different applications, right? So in order to do that, and even make it cross-chain, that's what Polkadot is aiming to do. Is they have been building that since 2017, and now with the launch of the Coco, the testnet of Kusama, I think they will have a lot of interesting blockchain project building on top of the Polkadot relay chain as a kind of full interesting and diverse ecosystem. Sorry, maybe this getting too a bit too technical.
No,
but
no,
I
no.
hope
I think this podcast is important. I think if you talk about these things, you need to go a bit technical. So that's very interesting. I think thank you so much for this, because I think there's not so much information about all the things that are happening, and I think you touched very important things for here. So one thing that that you've been very involved is the W3 or Web3. Can you tell us a bit? I know that of course everything we're talking here is about the Web3, but how do you see the Web3 and some of the things that you think are more relevant to what is happening, especially in China, and with the bridge with the blockchain Internet of Trust that we are calling as well, using Don Tapscott's book concept, but as well, how do you see this with what is happening right now in all this kind of blockchain 2.0, blockchain 3.0 that we are right now, and as well the internet protocols that are working right now?
Sure. So Web3 is a pretty abstract and a wide definition, right? That kind of that consists of a lot of different degrees of features and new type of system architect. So if we talk about Web3 in an abstract layer, in a way, it's kind of to reinvent, kind of rebuild what is the existing Web 2.0 type of system. I mean, I will give an example. Most of the centralized internet platforms, we need to upload our information, with the username, account, and so on, and especially all kinds of profile information and so on, right? The data that is stored mostly is in centralized database, right? And owned with not even a key, right? By this centralized creator of centralized platform. So the idea of Web3 in a way is the data that get used in the platform, to get enable you log in, send messages or do all kinds of kind of e-commerce or other kind of applications. That kind of data should be owned by the user itself. And the user with their private key, public key, that kind of, with their private key, are the only one able to open up the data and actually use it, right? The platform, I don't want to say bad things about Facebook and so on, but the platform provide service or even try to monetize users' data or somehow use their business model are not entitled to have the ownership of the user data. That is one of the essential part and component and the difference between Web 2.0 and Web 3.0. This is not actually created and initiated by Gavin Wood or maybe founder of Tezos, Arthur. It's actually all the way from the founder of World Wide Web, and that's Sir Tim Berners-Lee from UK. His original vision of internet is decentralized, first of all, and actually he realized a lot of huge network effect centralized platform into Web 2.0. Is actually building something against the original vision of World Wide Web, right? So Web 3, in a way, if we trace the old history, was created. The term is created by him, all the way, it was by Tim Berners-Lee. So you can see that kind of the originality and actually the legitimacy about that, because that's the person who actually created World Wide Web, right? And more like a kind of interoperable and decentralized web, internet, web internet, right? That are able to transfer information and share data to each other. Yeah.
So just one question on that, and I think you touched very well. So in terms of one of the things I want to touch, and I think it's particularly important because you are as well a technologist, but as well you have a strategy level. How do you see this Web3 right now with what is happening in the blockchain ecosystem and the AI at the same level? Because in one end, like you mentioned, we have at the moment, in one end the internet of China, with the internet of Russia, that are actually very close ecosystems. And we have the Western world, and then we have the blockchain protocols, which are decentralized in one end or centralized. How do you see this thing? It's a big question, but I think no one is actually touching these things, because at the moment we're creating a very fragmented digital ecosystem where we have a lot of different players, but blockchain is creating so much velocity that is creating another kind of digital communities, like you mentioned in the beginning. So I don't know if you want to just elaborate some ideas. How do you see these things working together?
So it's kind of how to say, it's kind of in a way, on a surface layer, people will feel it's contradicting, because central government is doing their own way, right, which is top down and centralized. I think in some use cases, it makes sense, right? You need the efficiency, you need to have the accuracy of decision making and so on. What essentially blockchain is able to do, or the philosophy of Web3, is transparent, is fairly distributed, and also open to all the users, right? So if you have a central node, central freedom node, right, kind of from centralized authority, if they make a mistake or they get attacked by an external hacker or something, right, that kind of system design is actually more vulnerable compared to decentralized distributed web internet, when it get kind of verified, cross-check with each other in type of way, right? So that's technical version to talk about that, right? The strategic or more like country dimension to talk about that is, we need to have a cross-border internet layer or communication layer, that we're able to share information, meaningful information that has value cross-border, right? So in a way, I think in the future, we can see a lot of cross-border blockchain networks are able to share internet of value, not internet of information, to different countries. Especially what I'm saying right now, China wants to build this internet through the One Belt, One Road countries, among the One Belt, One Road countries, right? So the use cases we can think about is what I mentioned, is trade finance or some other, smart city innovations. The data which is gathered in different cities, they get hashed into into a more like get summarized and kind of compressed into a hash and put on the chain. Digital transformation in different countries. What I know in Russia, in Europe, and in China is very different, because the people who build that is different, right? But I think blockchain is one of the technology and sector will integrate this different type of people from different countries into the same consensus. If you want to enter the ecosystem, you need to follow the consensus. You will have much higher costs if you want to make a malicious attack. If you want to misbehave within the network, you'll get slashed out, right? So that kind of things, which is more fair, more transparent, and able to build the trust. So if a lot of people actually are summarizing the essence of blockchain is the tool and technology to build trust. Trust is not entitled by authority. Trust is not entitled. Trust is created by having the consensus and people doing meaningful and valuable things and contributing to the network, right? So if we kind of use that kind of philosophy in the higher level, countries are competing with each other or collaborating with each other at the same time, right? Some countries are misbehaving, right, doing bad things. They will get kicked out in some global, internet organizations for some reason, or even they will get a penalty, right, an economic penalty, right, because they have some kind of, different deals, or they have some kind of, untrustworthy, agreements with each other. All this were not built upon on any internet or technology infrastructure. I think with blockchain, countries, even government, will become more trustworthy and has to be, become more trustworthy and behave well on that. And that's actually a very wide spectrum of use cases for blockchain. Not just in citizen level, definitely not just trading, right, but also in high level. And essentially, it's a way to create trust, and people needs to have a trustworthy relationship with each other. And that kind of trust is not entitled or given by a central entity or central authority.
Yeah, so I have one question, sorry, and I'm talking right now from a researcher to researcher, because
Sure.
my main concern right now, and I think especially you being in China, is that we are fragmenting too much the technology levels and layers to a point that, let's say, when the internet started was really truly global. Okay, and now we are kind of creating gates that are created. In one end, of course, there's all this kind of control totalitarian part of the technology that we're criticizing, from Cambridge Analytica to all these issues. But at the same time, right now we have, let's say, for instance, Russia create and cut part of the internet. So you have only access to some things. Dubai, for instance, you cannot use WhatsApp, you cannot use some of these things. In China, you cannot use other things. So it's becoming very crazy as well. So, and my fear right now from a society perspective, and you are as well, work with a lot of universities, is that this is creating like almost perception ecosystems. Because if you are only in WeChat, you only see WeChat. If you are only in Facebook, you only see Facebook. But then if you are in trading and in blockchain, which is a lot of people right now, you are only seeing that. So we're creating like kind of like tribes. And on the tribe side, this creates a huge challenge going forward, because like say, for instance, if you saw what happened, we are in January, and for instance, the US, one of the biggest and wealthiest states, Texas, went down in electricity. And this happens because the US doesn't have a grid system that works together like China has, or Europe. And this is, of course, is a disgrace. Okay, it is a complete disgrace. But at the same time, if you see the way they're handling that, it's kind of, oh my God, how is it possible in a first world country that we have something like this? But this is, I'm not talking the political implications of it, I'm talking on the technology, because we are creating so much advanced technology. It's like, for instance, what China is building right now, that you can only make payments digital. You almost don't have cash. That's amazing. So that means it kills most of the corruption. It can actually create a lot of transparency. But then you go to Germany and you have to have cash to pay. And you live in Netherlands, you still have to have a lot of real cash. So we have a very paradox society in terms of technology. And I'm particularly interested because I know that China advanced probably 10 years in terms of the rest of the world, but I'm not seeing a clarity. And what I see, let's say, imagine Tezos succeeds on trade finance and creates a corridor between a lot of different areas, which he's doing, or Polkadot between interoperability between blockchains. But then, okay, are we going to have an internet in China, an internet in Europe, an internet in Japan? And this becomes, oh my God, this is completely crazy. And that same point, because if we have all these different technology infrastructures, the scale, because if we have one single general internet, we can kind of, let's say if something goes down, we can actually track it and put it. But if you have a lot of things, we can actually be creating a lot of other kind of crazy paradoxes like corruption and transparency or manipulation of people, which is happening already. So I just want to touch this because for me, it's probably the biggest challenge we have in terms of technology, and very few people are not talking about this. Even me, I'm cautious about this because I'm starting to interact a lot with Chinese researchers and Chinese institutions, but you guys are really ahead of the rest of the world, much ahead. And I'm in the UK, which is quite advanced. Yeah, and the UK is quite advanced, but if you go to the rest of the world, people are still discovering what is digital, even if they use a phone and things like that.
Yeah. I think it's a very good question. It's an issue you just raised upon, right? You just expressed. I don't think that there's a very fundamental or ultimate solution yet. I haven't realized it, first of all. So I think it's kind of a work in progress, right? Countries, especially in the digital world, has to be more open because that creates more opportunities. There's necessity to become more open and more interoperable. But of course, there's some counter arguments from the central government layer saying we need to have more control, more protection, and to create less chaos, especially when you are actually handling so many people in your country, right? So there's some kind of special encryption which is needed to stop some information flow. That's the philosophy, or that's the kind of the rationale Chinese government is building this kind of information bridge. For political reason, right? Which people can argue, right? You're kind of against this kind of, speech of freedom or freedom of speech or something. But actually, it's actually not like that. It's more like just less chaos in a way.
No, I completely understand. I'm not talking from a political perspective. I'm talking from a technology perspective because, let's say, because you are becoming so advanced, then the other part of the world will become, well, it's how do you push the velocity of even the technology infrastructure?
Well, I think it's actually getting more and more equal because a lot of technology is created by open source methodology, right? You see, for example, in Polkadot or Ethereum, you see developers or co-contributors are coming from all over the world, right? And we have access to Ethereum from different countries. It's the same thing, right? The smart contract you build upon Ethereum is the same you build in the United States and the same building China, right? So that's actually quite equal. How we can call this like the water is flat, right? But you are right. There's a lot of code standard or digital setup, such as this WeChat, Kakao or Telegram. All these are from different regions, like different countries, are using different tools, right? It's kind of isolated with each other. I think we will find more and more new type of product, which is built upon the interoperable network, blockchain network, that is cross-border and actually more open. But I think to do that, it needs to be properly well designed and have certain protection or control, can have some kind of, the other side of to maintain less chaos for the government. So the balance about having cross-border, very global way of communication tool and technology tool that we can share the same standard and actually send messages to among cross-border. It is very important to do, right? But I think because the scale is so big, it takes time to build, right? China is leading its way, especially on the mobile payment, on the fintech. But I think there's other things will be easily picked up by other Western countries. We're sharing a lot of our own code standard, and we're sharing a lot of the technologies through not just service, but also open source models. A lot of technology can be learned and picked up quite easily by some other developing countries, such as Africa. What I know is a lot of African countries, such as Nigeria, is really leapfrogging their financial innovation by leveraging blockchain technology to build their kind of application on top of that. They don't really have so many well-developed financial banking system, right? So instead of building all kinds of brick and mortar banking branches, they actually leapfrog into the mobile payment and mobile bank, things like that. And those kind of things, there's kind of an interesting and a standard international package can be learned and actually deployed into different countries. So I hope and I think in the next couple of years, those technology will be more easily accessible. And because the technologies, the cost is getting lower and lower, it will become cheaper and easier to deploy to different countries. And now it's indeed still isolated, still expensive, lack of standardized protocol and systems, a lot of incompatibility. If you want to integrate this technology with API and SDK, there's still a lot of incomparable thing, right? A lot of error. You need to kind of adjust, even change your crypto architect to make it happen. This is indeed a problem to have. I think the engineers, especially the open source community and also the major corporates, needs to find a way to work together within a consortium methodology, or maybe more open, like a public chain approach. And we'll see. I think the top-down consortium approach will be interesting for the government to government layer to work together. But for the community or citizen layer, is more from the open network, right? That's why that's the necessity to have open public chain like Polkadot, Ethereum, Tezos. So it's kind of open public chain, not a consortium chain. So it's just different approach. I think the top-down approach and the bottom approach will meet somewhere in the end.
No,
I hope that answers your question.
I like. It's a very good point. It's not about. It's more about the reflection about this than actually the question, because I think the question, like you said, is so big and complex. But I think I'm worried about it. So well, I think we passed 1 hour or close to 1 hour now. So I will be going from my last question. Although I have a lot of questions, it's a great conversation. So I think with COVID-19, there's been a digital transformation leapfrogging, and of course, China is still. You guys managed to keep things under control, but around the world is a total mess. In the UK, we've been closed. The economy has been closed for 1 year, and around Europe, the same. US is a chaos, and this is affecting all the world. But at the same time, there's a lot of a huge part of the economy still working because of digital. So I think in one end, we managed to get these platforms where we all work, and it's working. So especially when it comes to the present and future of blockchain, I would like to have, and as well, the relationship with artificial intelligence. And I know that you work with universities and governments doing research. You mentioned, we didn't talk much about smart cities as well, but I would like to see how you see this ecosystem. You touched a bit the Chinese Belt initiative about the cities, and they're working as well in blockchain. But from your view and the research you've been seeing in the universities you're working, how you see this kind of innovation and the possibilities coming out of this? Because in one end, of course, Tezos has all these opportunities on finance, trading, but there's smart cities, there's a lot of things. So from a macro perspective, from an innovation perspective, and especially, I know that you've been working with the likes of the University of Zhejiang, Fudan, and so forth. So a bit of this work that you're doing, both academic research and of course the things you talk about business and finance.
I think COVID, thank you for the question. It's a very good question. I think it needs to be addressed and discussed, from different perspective, right? COVID gave people like us a very good opportunity, right? Because the world physically become more isolated. You cannot travel, right? We need to rely on this kind of information technology like Zoom or other communication tool to work. There's a lot of discussion about future of work, right? The remote work is become the new norm, right? And actually somehow some startup and companies find it's actually very effective and a cost saving, right? To do that, which is good. But we need to realize because of COVID, this new norm, new normal, companies need to restructure themselves in terms of organizations. And all the innovation and research project that we have been building in China, I see will be more digital driven as well. There was a lot of things rely on physical events, research, discussion, forum, needs to do that online. So that gives opportunity because things get faster. You don't need to wait so on, but also gives new issues that will create new issues, right? How to protect your IP when you have we are doing all kinds of research online. You're sharing your early research result online. and among the university research lab and so on, right? That's critical. Second is how to make sure the things you're co-building and also research things, for example, IoT stuff, AI things will have solid use cases, right? Without the physical interaction. So a lot of things will be built online, will be co-created online, distributed online, and actually commercialized online. Or online, you can see it digitally, right? So we are seeing today, this year, the massive growth of non-fungible token, or let's say digital asset on chain, because the COVID, it's gonna be like a physical, or let's say, like a societal reason to accelerate that kind of push. It will happen without COVID. I think COVID is just making things faster and more like mandatory, because we cannot travel easily, and a lot of companies stopping using their offices, right? Even big company like Microsoft and Google asking and putting their developers into remote work. Most of our portfolio company in Candaq actually are remote working now. Although we are lucky enough in China, we have a very controlled situation of COVID. We still can have our office, right? We're working, offline, but that's a new norm. I think this new norm will fundamentally change the future of work across the globe. Will change the way how we create new innovation. I think it's exciting because that will create new solutions needs to be built. All those co-built and kind of online digital version project management tool is needed. I think there will be built even further version to make it easy to do, more user friendly, and so on.
Completely agree with you, and I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's the biggest opportunity probably of a generation, and as well for us it's great, but we need to make sure that society can look at this and empower society for this. So one question I have, probably my last one, although I have a lot of questions. It's been a fantastic interview, and thank you for being so. I think it's great that you went very detailed, because a lot of these things sometimes people only have overview, or then there's scientific papers or technical papers, but people don't discuss this, at least. So at the moment, as we speak, Polkadot is the fifth biggest token in the world, with a valuation of 29.5 billion market cap.
Yeah.
And Tezos is as well on the top, on the top 24 at the moment, as we speak today, with the valuation of $3.7 billion. So I know that most of people right now listening about blockchain, they just think about the numbers and the trading. And we are in a very special ecosystem where trading, at the moment, there's 8,522 cryptocurrencies in the world, with a market cap of $1.6 trillion. So I want to touch this not on the crypto side, but I want to, because you are a technologist, you are a researcher, but you are as well working with two of the major tokens in the planet. And so how do you, just for people listening to us, and I think this is very important, because I always try to tell people that blockchain is not just crypto or trading. There's technology behind it. That's what we've been talking in this conversation. But I would like to just, from your side, and I think from an industry and as well an insider, how do you see this bridge between the valuation of the tokens, which is not different from stock markets and things like that? The difference is that this is going much faster than in stock markets ever in history, because this has been happening at a velocity of 5 years. We created an entire new economy. And as well, if $1.6 trillion is already a substantial amount. So I just want to understand this bridge. How do you see these bridges between the research academic, because Tezos and Polkadot have a massive research. You mentioned software developing, research, universities, society, and then the trading and this part. And most of this trading is not public and not official, because, for instance, countries like Nigeria are blocking crypto. And even in the UK, there's a lot of restrictions to crypto, although crypto is right now mainstream. And we have Elon Musk. So it's a bit of a confusion, but I would like to touch that with you, because I think this needs to be touched on a higher level, not just on the crypto side, because we have the crypto people on one side, the society on another. Let's make the bridge, because this is good for everyone if you know, if we talk about it.
Yeah, thank you for raising this question. This is actually a very important question to explain. So the valuation of a project, of a token project, based on multiple reasons, right? especially for layer one, this kind of infrastructure layer project, is based upon the number of transactions you have on the network, the total locked value that put on the staking for the network, the number of meaningful usage of commercial application built on top of the network. There's multiple ways to evaluate that, right? And I think these three are the most important part. If you evaluate the valuation, this should be valid and actually justified to quantify how much fundamental value should be on Polkadot or Tezos, right? So in a way to summarize it, these three elements is the utility. Make sure the blockchain has really meaningful utility. So there's always the ambiguity or kind of arguments. Is this a trade security or a utility? Most of the tokens, such as Polkadot token or Tezos, are utility, right? We need to use that token to do certain things in the network. That's why it has value. We need to use that for smart contract trading, for transaction fee, or so on and so forth, right? That's actually the utility. A lot of people, especially the trader, kind of a little bit speculative type of traders, don't understand the utility, meaning of the utility. They think those kind of token has a price and become tradable, and you can make speculation around that. They treat that as a share. In the stock market, shares is security, right? Security needs to obey the security, SEC or some other, financial rules. It's different ways, right? Utility doesn't mean you have the ownership of the network, right? Although if you have a big chunk of the utility token, you can do a lot of things in the network. That's the difference, utility and security, right? I think that's a very clear-cut difference. The token of Polkadot or Tezos they never publicly claim it's security, right? But people will have confusion somehow because there's so much things involved. It's kind of like utility, but security, but actually not. So if we want to justify the valuation of the network, of the project, one of the most important part is what is the solution or product they are providing to the users or B2B users, B2C as well, that has meaningful utility, right? The reason why the whole decentralized finance application project in the Ethereum world is increasing so much of their valuation, such as RV, Compound, MakerDAO, all that, is they have real financial utility, right? And the token represents the meaning of the utility, reflection of the entire network's utility. MakerDAO was for staking and then lending, right? RV was for lending, Synthetics for synthetic assets and so on, right? There's utility, meaning and value building on top of the token, right? So that's the important part. People always look at as a security part of the approach. If it's a security, then it's different way of modifying it. You need to have all the fundamentals, right? Discounted cash flow, comparable, multiple, this kind of valuation model. Blockchain doesn't really use that model because it's different structure design. Most of the blockchain companies is issued with a foundation and not just a legal entity. And they don't because of the nature of wants to be decentralized network, it doesn't necessarily have the standard corporate governance model. You have the board member, you have the shareholder meetings and so on, right? So it's different. So if we look at the current valuation of the Polkadot and the Tezos, or some other, even Ethereum, right? The top two, the number two network in the world, is the utility, which is a utility value in the network. So that's why if you want to start to do research, and also even consider to do investment of a blockchain project, you have to look at the real value on the blockchain, right? What's the utility value on that? And that is important. A lot of people misunderstood on the part, there's some kind of bubble because people are treating that as a security. They want to buy low and sell high, that kind of speculation reason. But forget about what is the real technology value and utility value within that, right? If there's nothing you can do with the technology, there's no utility, then there's no value. I hope that answered somehow.
No, completely. And I wanted, it was a provocative but a constructive question. I think it's very important to reflect this. And I think allied people, especially the people that might be overwhelmed by everything happening on crypto, that there's a value behind it. And I think let's focus on the value more than anything else, because unless you are a professional trader, you should focus on reality and not in fiction. Thank you so much, Charlie. I think I have a lot of other questions, but I will leave that for a potential follow-up. Congratulations for the excellent work. We're going to be collaborating a couple of things, but I'm really excited. And as well, it's great that you went technical in detail about the Candaq work, China economy and China work and different things. We'll put all the links to all your different achievements. And I appreciate all of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the wonderful questions. It was indeed some kind of good reflection about the previous work and also the recent things I'm having.
Well, very impressive. Thank you.